I've reviewed quite a lot of Nexx helmets over the years, and every year the quality just seems to be getting better and better. So does the new X.LifeCountry continue that trend? Let's find out. If you're unfamiliar with the Nexx brand, then let me give you a quick little bit of background information. They are a Portuguese company that make their helmets on site and try to use materials from suppliers within as small a radius as they can. I visited the factory when the XWED3 and XWST3 were launched and was surprised by how much hands-on labour was involved. Companies like Arrow make a big point about this style of manufacture, and it was a similar story at Nexx. So when I was offered the opportunity to test one of their new flip front or modular helmets, I jumped at the chance. Personally, I don't wear modular helmets that much, largely because of this channel. They're difficult to mount a POV camera to the chin and mount a microphone and do that all successfully, so I tend not to use them. But I have, of course, reviewed and worn a lot in the course of making content for this channel, so I do know my way around them, and I think I know what people generally want from them. There are two helmets in the company's lineup. The X.Life Tour, which is a touring kind of stroke sports touring helmet, and this one, the X.LifeCountry, which is a peaked adventure style helmet. So before I get on to how this helmet performed on the road, let's just take a very brief look at its construction and some of its features. As with the previous helmets, there's a mixture of carbon and composite shells within the model range. But I have to be honest, Nexx don't make that abundantly clear on their main website. However, the UK site does offer a breakdown of features for each helmet, which makes it somewhat easier to distinguish them. So let me break it down for you. The Zero Pro is the top of the range, has a carbon shell, is fitted with a Pinlock 120 XLT and ships with an additional tinted visor. This helmet's got a matte finish showing the bare carbon weave. The Terra is the same, but with graphics. The Westbound has a composite shell, is fitted with a Pinlock 70 and doesn't come with a second visor. The Plane is the same setup, and as the name suggests, it has a single colour finish. So let's delve into this helmet, the Terra, a little bit deeper, here shown in the grey neon colour scheme. I'm not going to go into minute details on this. I just want to tick off the most important features of this helmet and its construction, and then concentrate more on how it's performed out on the road. Sadly, I'm going to start with a little bit of a negative. There are only two shell sizes across the whole size range for the helmet, which for a lid that sits squarely in the premium price bracket is a little bit disappointing. This of course can lead to the helmet being less than compact, and if I'm being less polite, I will say gives you that bobblehead effect if you're at the smaller end of the sizes in each of those shells. Nexx claim 1,875 grams plus or minus 50 grams, and on my scales this helmet showed 1,926 grams with the Pinlock fitted, which is within 1 gram of that tolerance level. And I have to admit, these are my kitchen scales. I use them to weigh all of the helmets, so the weights that I'm seeing are consistent, but they're not a calibrated scale. Confusingly, the sticker on the helmet shows 1,725 grams. Nonetheless, 1,926 grams is quite heavy, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the riding section. There's a 2-position chin vent and a single 3-position vent on the top of the helmet. It has a drop-down visor, a breath guard, and the peak comes fitted with an extendable point. There's a single button release for the chin bar, and as is required under ECE 2206 certification, the chin bar requires a lock for use in both orientations. As usual with modular helmets, the strap has a micro lock fastener with extended padding to ensure a snug fit around the neck. The helmet has the facility to fit Nexx's own XCOM units, which are manufactured by Senna, but you can still fit other third-party suppliers' comms units to the side of this helmet, but with varying levels of success. The accessory box that comes with the helmet includes 2 action camera mounts, one for the top and one for the side, and a chin guard. This is a little bit fiddly to fit, but once it's in, it is very secure. Onto the interior, it's got a nice plush finish. and features what Nexx refer to as the mid-airflow chamber, which is designed to keep a gap between the inner and outer EPS and provide a high level of air circulation. The interior, of course, is also fully removable for washing. I think that's enough of a run through of the construction and features of the helmet. I'll obviously talk about that more in the riding section, and that is definitely the most important part, how it performs. But one thing before I get onto that, and unfortunately it's another gripe, and that's the fact that the peak cannot be removed without a tool. But because of the way it is mounted, it also means that you can't remove the visor without removing the peak. Of course, this is only going to be an issue if you want to continually change the visor, but it could prove to be a bit of a pain. As I mentioned, the helmet does ship with a pin lock in the box. In this helmet's case, it's the excellent 120 XLT, but that was where I came across my first problem. To remove the peak, you need to pop the side covers off and undo these bolts. But be careful. As I would do with any other helmet, I remove the fixtures on both sides to take the peak out of the way. But when doing this, the retainer came away, and I discovered that these bolts also actually fix the chin bar in place, which was a bit alarming. So the technique is to remove the bolt, move the peak out of the way and replace that bolt, then do the other side with the chin bar closed and locked in place. The changing of the visor then was pretty easy, much like any other, but the whole peak attachment design is a bit of a dog's dinner, if I'm being honest. Right, now with that issue out of the way, what's it like on the bike? The first thing I can say that it is a comfortable place to be, and it's definitely an intermediate oval head shape. Vision is excellent both from a field of view and clarity point of view, and the drop down visor is the same. One thing I really like about this visor is it drops down a long way. More than most others that I've tried, in fact. You don't get that stripe of light at the bottom, and it doesn't interfere with your nose either. I found this to be really good. Operation of the vents is simple, even with gloved hands, and the ventilation is good. Obviously, I haven't yet been able to try it in hot weather to see how effective it is, but doing it with cold air certainly lets you know how much air flows through, and you can probably get a better feel for where that air is flowing when it's cold over your head than when you're trying to get rid of the heat. So I'm pretty sure it will be okay, and that will be something that I'll feed back on over time. I talked about the weight earlier in the video, and there's no getting away from the fact that this is quite a heavy helmet. Having said that, riding in it, I didn't really notice that difference that much. Now, admittedly, I haven't yet done multi-day tours or spent 8, 10, 12 hours in the saddle where potentially that weight will start to bring fatigue on a little bit quicker. I've generally found modular helmets are always just that little bit heavier than their sort of one-piece competitors because there's more mechanics in there. But generally, this isn't too bad. And one thing I've found is maybe that extra bit of weight is contributing to keeping some of the external sounds out and making the helmet a little bit quiet. Now, I'm not making excuses for it. The scales don't lie. It's a heavy helmet. But it's not something that I think would necessarily put me off of trying this helmet out. Opening the visor is really easy with a tab on each side, and there's 5 stops from closed to fully open. By the same token, the chin bar release is super easy too. Press and lift and that's it. Snapping back shut is just as simple, and it can all be done with one hand. Okay, so let's get on to the subject of noise, which, as I'll add in every video, there is a caveat to that. It's very subjective. It depends on how well the helmet fits you, what bike you're riding, if it's got a screen, if it's naked, how tall you are, what jacket you're wearing even. So this is just my experience of this helmet. Now, I will point out that I do always wear my ultimate ear hearing protections when I'm doing these tests, and I wear the same set of squidgies for every single helmet review that I do, so I am coming from a level playing field. But in my time in this ex-LifeCountry, I did find it to be a quiet place. The combination of it being a good fit, the plush interior, and close-fitting neck roll all help to keep the external noise at bay, and as I said, the weight probably helps too. Lighter helmets do often tend to be noisier, but all is not rosy in the garden. I did have a problem with that peak. There seems to be 2 schools of thought when it comes to peaks from manufacturers. Arai and Shoei, for example, utilise rigid peaks where others go down the thin and flexible route. I don't think one solution is particularly better than the other. It depends on the overall design of the helmet. But I will have to say that both the Tor X4, Tor X5 and the Shoei Hornet, those rigid peaks have never given me any grief. This is a two-piece peak and it does have an extendable section to it. Riding the Africa Twin or the BMW R1300 GS with those screens in any position did create vibration in this peak. And because of its mounting design, that just resonated into the shell, creating a horrible buzz. On a naked bike, it was less noticeable and it was something that I could live with. But given this helmet style is popular with adventure and tall roader riders, its performance with a screen was disappointing. And to be honest, it's not something I could live with. Now, this problem was solved by Nexx with their X.LifeCountry helmets. They changed the way that the peak was fitted and they used small rubber mounts to isolate any movement from this peak into the shell. But I'm guessing that because there's less real estate in this area on a flip front helmet, that wasn't an option for them. It's a real shame as the fit, the comfort, the vision, that drop down visor are all really good, but it's let down by this peak that just transfers all of that vibration into the shell. If I had bought this helmet from a retailer as opposed to being lent it to do this review, I would be looking to return it. On previous helmets, there's been an additional piece that you can add on, which I've never put on. I've never felt the need for it. So I thought, well, let's take this off and see if it's any different. Well, it made a little bit of a difference, but not much, to be honest. Of course, I could remove the peak and ride it as a normal styled helmet. There are in fact adapters that in that accessory box, so if you take the peak off, you can cover that over and get a nice clean finish. But that's not the point. I wanted to try this because I like a peaked helmet, not from an aesthetic point of view, but this is still the best method I've found of shading your eyes in low sun. So that is useful. Obviously, if you're going to go down the route of riding without this, you might as well just buy the Life Tour, which has got a much smoother shell in terms of the fitment. So I think that's about all for this review. It's a lovely looking helmet with a really nice interior, excellent clear vision and a very good drop down visor. I would also consider it to be a quiet helmet with the exception of this peak issue. And for me with this helmet, that's the stumbling block. And to a lesser extent, the fixing method of this peak. Now, I can live with that. I don't generally swap the visors over. With a drop-down sun visor in this, I don't really feel the need to kind of keep switching over to a tinted visor for this. So that's less of an issue. But the fact that it resonates the sound into the shell is the big problem for me. The Nexx X.LifeCountry is an excellent adventure helmet. And if you don't want or need the modular element, that would definitely be the lid I would pick over this one. As ever, this is just my experience and you may have a completely different one with this peak. I've mentioned it on other helmets. I think it was the Nolan X72, is that what it's called? I can't remember. But I had a similar issue with the peak buzzing on that, and I've had people in the comments saying that they own that helmet and they've not had any problems. So it could just be a combination of me and the two bikes that I tried it on that have got screens that created the problem. But it is something to bear in mind. There is a link in the description that will take you away to the Nexx UK site if you want to find out more information. And if you do decide you want to buy a helmet, then if you go through that link, a 10% discount will automatically be applied at checkout. So you save a little bit of money, whether that's on this helmet or any helmet in the Nexx range. So if you've got any questions or would like to know something about aspects that I haven't spoken about in this video for the helmet, then let me know in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.